just down south here.
Yeah, Denver. Denver, I guess in a good way, is cracking down. I don't never necessarily know where it's coming from, but
yeah. Well, I know the citizens of surrounding towns have started to speak more, voting down various different pieces of legislation and stuff, and fighting against the notion of being a sanctuary city. But guys, Denver official is going viral across the internet, of course, when he suggested that immigrants should go to New York City or Chicago, and quote unquote, the opportunities are over. So various different publications have released this, but we pulled this directly from Colorado Politics. And it was written by Annabella Rossiglione by way of the Washington Examiner. So they probably just pulled it and pasted it. But facing a multi-million-dollar budget deficit, back to the spending here, guys. Yeah. The city of Denver is suggesting that immigrants go elsewhere. A video obtained by 9 News, which we have and we'll share with you guys, showed Andres Carrera, Denver Mayor Mike Johnston's political director, speaking in Spanish to immigrants, telling them there are better opportunities outside of Colorado. He said in the video, the opportunities are over. Excuse me. New York gives you more. Chicago gives you more. So I suggest you go there where there is longer-term shelter. There are also more job opportunities there. We are not going to block you if you want to stay here. If you stay here, you are going to suffer even more. And I don't want to see this. The immigrants in the video arrived on March 26th, a part of Governor Abbott of Texas' efforts to bus immigrants out of Texas to sanctuary cities. According to a city spokesperson, Carrera said immigrants won't be blocked from staying, but suggest they would invoke more suffering by staying. Lastly, Denver recently began cracking down on immigrants staying in the city. Last month, the city began closing shelters in order to address its budget deficit. Closing shelters saved the city $60 million, bringing the deficit down to $120 million from $180 million.
Literally what we were just saying.
Yes.
Ending some of these programs. And this is, again, guys, we're not against legal immigration, and we're not against helping people, immigrate and get out of the situation that they're in. There are also a lot of really terrible people that are coming through. Mm-hmm. And then we're not taking the time to stop and think about the long-term burden and impact that this stuff is having on us, particularly when we have a terrible homeless problem. The average American has less than $1,000 in savings. We're talking about educated populace.
Correct.
That has less than $1,000 in savings. And we're over here giving away money to these immigrants, which obviously they're totally hamstrung because they can't work. They can't do any of that. So we're setting them up for this disaster.
Right.
It's not like they just get here and all of a sudden life is good and easy. Like, we're dealing with inflation. We're dealing with the same kinds of issues. And you're stepping into a workforce where you don't really have any skills or education or anything to compete. What are you supposed to do? Right. And so now cities are waking up. I mean, this is a good thing about, state, local governments actually having some control over that, aside from what the federal government's doing and allowing.
Yeah.
But you're going to see more cities like this wake up.
You are, dude. And personally, I feel like we're a nation in need of courageous leadership. And leadership does not mean title or position. And what sparks my thought to say that is actually the rest of this article. I want to share the rest of this portion with you guys and you guys here. She says, she's quoting Johnston. She's quoting Mark Johnson, the mayor. We knew that as a result of federal inaction on immigration and the resulting budget crisis, there were 2 important steps we needed to take. Johnson said this at the time of the closures. One was to address the city's budget to help support these needs, and the second one was to reduce the overall cost of our migrant program. Immigrants were not kicked out, but they were moved to different shelters as part of the consolidation process. This is post closing down some of these shelters to save money. Carrera's message suggests that Denver is still looking to cut the number of immigrants in the city from 38,000, as it was last tallied in February. Other Colorado cities have said that they will not financially support the immigration crisis. You don't have to walk anywhere. We can buy you a free ticket. You can go to any city. We can take you up to the Canadian border, wherever. The The reason why I say I think we need courageous leadership is because we're so prone to move around what the actual issue is. It's like, okay, we knew that there were going to be two steps. One was to adjust the budget to support needs. The second was to reduce the overall cost of migrant programs. Why not stop them from coming?
Right.
Like that part right there is like, there's this need for courageous leadership.
I think the problem is that at least the state level is really hard to stop. Once they're in,
yes,
it's very hard to stop them
for sure.
So I think the bigger issue is just it's definitely at the border is the issue.
Yeah, that's what yeah. Like it just baffles me. Like we do this for you guys who are leading businesses, and I just cannot. When I'm looking at this stuff, I just see this glaring demand for leadership. It's a leadership crisis of like, do the right thing.
Yeah.
Like,
and this is what the argument has been. And so again, like it's kind of like the context that I see. I'm really seeing it from the people that are migrating's perspective today. Imagine I have a company and I hire an employee and I ask them to move all the way across the country, move their family, move their life to come there. And then the day that they show up, I go, hey, it's not working out, which you can do in Colorado. Colorado is an at-will employer. So you just moved your whole life, your whole family, sold your house, you have no home. You're here as an American citizen. Yeah. You have the right to work. And I just pulled the rug out from underneath you. It would be hard for you in that situation. Now imagine traveling from a totally different country. You don't speak the language. You don't have the ability to work or make money. Right. You don't have anything to your name, really. And then all of a sudden you're thrust into this situation. I mean, what do you do? It's desperation, man. So some of the crime that we're seeing is probably out of desperation for sure.
For sure.
But we're just setting these people up for disaster.
Right. Well, and I feel like too, we're also setting us up for some really hard decisions.
Correct.
Because what we're ultimately going to have to do is take some steps to solve this issue that's going to involve people feeling very uncomfortable with the choices they've had to come to support, or we acquiesce to it and say, well, we'll just change the whole thing to accommodate. But if you do that, there's implications to that too. And we don't have the answers here, but I do think that it's like what you said, dude. Like when we're talking about the just a few minutes ago with the spending, whereas like, hey, if your business or is going to fail, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
Like, and at some point we're going to have to decide whether they're going to close the border, or we're going to do deportation. We're going to do the things that we need to do to get the situation rectified, or we're just going to let it flow. It's just like, it just seems like these are the choices.
Yeah. This happens at the end of every major economic cycle, right? We're coming to the end of it. Weak leadership, it's like pandering to the smallest 1%, radical individualism. That's what got us here. The liberal religion of wokeism.
Right.
And they try to make you feel guilty for crap like this. It's like, you should feel terrible about what the situation you just put that person in.
Yeah.
And
you should.
And there's a reason that we have sovereignty. There's a reason that we have borders, because there are certain ideologies in other countries that we do not want to participate in. I can promise you.
Yeah. And everything sounds good on paper. Right? It sounds good on paper to be a place for people to come to. It sounds good on paper to be a sanctuary city. Well, here are the implications of it, right? You actually didn't think through this. You actually didn't plan. You actually didn't get the input of the people who you need to get the input of. And now
so I'm all for it. I mean, my family were immigrants, both on my mom's side and my dad's side, right? They came through Ellis Island, right? And I'm only like third generation. Like my families haven't even been here for 100 years, right? So immigration's very important, right? But there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And so, right now, the way it's happening, at the rate at which it's happening, it's total chaos. And it doesn't end well. It doesn't end well for American citizens. It doesn't end well for the immigrants. Right. And in between that, there's a lot of people who do not have good intentions.
Correct.
In coming here.
Fact. Said it best. We didn't even play the video, but we don't need to.